The shaky faith of the angry. Have you ever been so angry that you were just shaking? Imagine some politicians debating angrily and shaking their fingers at each other. One says, "I personally blame you for completely creating this problem." Then in response, Ron Paul gets so furious that he shakes and he says, "What? How can you blame me? I voted against everything bad and for everything good. The real problem is politicians like you, sir, who blame other politicians for blaming other people for causing the real problems that they say are the real problems, when in fact, once the accusations are removed, those so-called problems are just developments, as in circumstances." Okay, of course, politicians like Ron Paul would probably not say that. They are too busy relating to reality as a bunch of problems than prioritizing the various problems, than valiantly trying to solve them, or at least to look valiant to themselves while they try to solve them. I call that vanity, as in pride. I began studying the subject a long time ago when I too began valiantly saving the world from all of its problems, or at least trying to look good while I tried to look like I was solving at least one actual problem. My grandmother Edith was not impressed by all of that, or any of that. One day, shortly after I entered college, she said to me something like this: "Oh, you're such a proud little do-gooder, aren't you?" "What? What?" was of course my reply. Then I thought silently to myself, because I would dare not say this out loud, "But no, I am not argumentative. Ron Paul may be argumentative, but certainly not me." So I could be a very angry youngster at times. Further, in some ways, I did not really grow up much in the next decade after that early college interaction with my grandmother. Nor did I grow up much in the one decade after that decade. However, now I finally understand what she was referencing. I was following a program of what to be proud about, what to be interested in, and what to do to fit in. At least to fit into that program of how to be perceived as a do-gooder. And that's what she was talking about. Do-gooders doing the things that are good or that fit in to being perceived as being a good boy. Anyway, she probably asked me, how was college going? And what have you been doing? I told her that I volunteered to go to a beach and clean up trash with a bunch of other college students, mostly young ladies who would be wearing much less during the volunteering outing than I was used to seeing them wearing, because we were at a beach. Of course, I may not have described it precisely like that to my grandmother. Anyway, with all my pride at cleaning up the beach like any good boy should do, she responded with, "Grow up, boy. By the way, you look thin. How many push-ups can you do?" I was startled. I was stunned. I was offended. I was insulted. I was angry. She was my grandmother. She was supposed to be nice to me. She was supposed to soothe me. She was supposed to validate me. "You're such a good boy. You're so smart. You're so clever. And it's so wonderful that you're going to the beach to pick up trash. My goodness. Let me pinch your cheeks." At least those were the kind of things that I might have said to myself that she was supposed to do and supposed to be and all that. So let's talk briefly about faith and anger. Sometimes people talk about faith a lot, but they get irritated or angry if anyone questions their logic. And they may stay irritated and angry. That's kind of the key thing, in fact. In other words, some people may have confused faith with something that involves presumptions and logic. Their faith is rooted in some particular evidence. Their faith is about a logical deduction based on that evidence. That's normal, but that's not what I mean by faith. I might call that a mere belief or presumption, even ideology. Faith is the natural result of experience, direct experience. If I have direct experience with some subject, then do I get irritated or angry if someone questions my experience? It's like if I say I'm from Florida and somebody says, "Really?" Do I get irritated or angry that they questioned if I'm really from Florida? No, I know I'm from Florida. Somebody questions that I'm from Florida with some kind of a, you know, cynicism or something in their questioning, some kind of condescension. I'm just like, that's weird. They're being condescending or cynical. Okay, but I know I'm from Florida. I have no, I don't argue about it. I don't get irritated at, to the point of having to, where I defend, but I can prove it. I really am from Florida. No. Faith is a result of direct experience. It's a natural result. So do I have a shaky so-called faith, a shaky faith that is actually just a belief or presumption? Do I have an anxiety about convincing other people to agree with me? Do I crave their approval? Please approve of me. Do I disapprove of anyone who does not share my particular form of devotion or fanaticism or ideology? Like if I say that people from Florida are better than everyone else or something, would I get all, argumentative if somebody didn't agree with me? Do I criticize and complain as a ritual of my religion based on belief and presumption and idealistic mythology? The dismissal, I'm saying that wrong. The disapproval and argumentativeness of someone who craves validation is just a sign of their craving. So someone who craves validation is going to be naturally argumentative. They're going to be inclined to be disapproving. If people don't agree with them, then they're going to say, well, anything that's not my presumption is the wrong presumption. That does get back to dismissiveness. They're dismissing all other presumptions as dumb, and their presumption isn't a presumption, it's the truth. So people who crave validation tend to be argumentative. That would apply to me as well as anyone else if I, in the past or in the future or whenever, if I am in that mode of craving validation. That is a sign of craving and also a sign of a presumption, like a lack of clarity, a lack of direct experience. Perhaps there could be, at least. So it is one thing to go to beaches for any reason whatsoever. It is another thing to whine about other people going to beaches and leaving trash there. Whining can be annoying. But which is more annoying? The trash on the distant beach or the whining about it for hours and weeks? If people want to clean up trash, that's cool too. Anyway, I'm not whining about whining either. Though I may have done that a few times as well. If someone whines and someone else validates their whining, that's entirely possible. It may be very valuable to, it may not be very valuable to me, but my valuing of something is a distinct issue. If other people do it, they do it. Okay. I could value some possibility as a thing to suppress or to ignore or to encourage and promote. Those are all ways of me relating to it or valuing it. I think we should ignore that, or I think we should suppress that, or I think we should encourage and promote that. Those are my evaluations, my ways of relating to it. Okay, so any of those are possible. Yes, even suppressing or opposing something, even oppressing someone, exploiting, victimizing, terrorizing, propagandizing, all of those things are possible ways of relating to someone, some topic, whatever. So if Ron Paul wants to expose all government programs, I'm reading wrong again. If Ron Paul wants to oppose all government programs that redistribute wealth to particular exclusive recipients from particular select sources of government revenues, well, that's possible. He can oppose all government programs or a particular one. That's totally possible. Lots of people besides Ron Paul will do the same thing. I've done that myself occasionally. I may or may not choose to actively question whether there have ever been any government programs that did not redistribute wealth to particular exclusive recipients from particular select sources of government revenues. That sounds to me like every government program ever in the history of government. But anyway, I might choose to invest my time and energy to question something, or to oppose it, or to promote it, or to ignore it, and focus on other things. I might choose to promote particular systematic redistributions of wealth toward particular recipients and from particular sources. That could be in the form of the politics of involuntary redistribution, like government, or in the form of operating a business and soliciting customers through things like advertising and referrals. I invite them to redistribute their wealth to me in exchange for whatever product or service. So maybe my grandmother was actually angry at me for being such a wuss, a good boy, so to speak, with the key on. Not just good, but boy. A wuss. Good boy. That's what you say to your dog, right? So she was not angry at me as in abusive, but maybe she was just angry as in disappointed. Is that all you've been doing in college? She might have been thinking. Really? That sounds rather boring. Picking up trash at the beach, that's the best you've got? Don't you have any dramatic adventures for sharing to amuse your dear old granny? Well, not that I'm going to tell you, Granny. I'm only going to tell you about picking up trash from the beach. Given your response to that story, I think that whole topic of conversation is already over. Can we see how that lack of security in one's own position, in one's own social presentation, is not faith. It's a shaky faith. It's belief. It's presumption. It's ideology. And that results in argumentative anger, condescension, all sorts of antagonisms, blame, shaming others. And there's certainly all of those things are valid, possible things to do. But none of them are how I mean faith. The faith that goes with the clarity that comes from direct experience. Even when we talk about religious faith, faith as it relates to spirituality. In fact, especially when we talk about that kind of faith.